Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bunny Cakes, and if you're new here, welcome back to my channel for the first time. Today I am going to be doing my June TBR. So I have several books on my TBR. I don't know that I'm going to get to all of them, though I am making specific choices in order to make sure that some of these books get chosen over others. So first I'm going to start with the ebooks that I have on my TBR. The first one is The Poppy War. This one I'm doing as part of a group read over with Nick at Knickknacks Corners Discord server. This one is written by a Chinese American author, and it's a fantasy story that centers on an orphan named Ren who trains in secret to test to an elite academy. And just all the talk I've seen about it makes it look really good, and I tend to be kind of easily swayed towards reading books sometimes if I see people talking about them. It makes me want to read them. I'm hoping I enjoy this though, because I've been trying to diversify my reading in experiencing books about characters from other cultures, and this one is centered on a culture that has nothing to do with mine, but it's also still within my realm of comfort. It's a fantasy story, and it's it was also mentioned on a sci-fi and fantasy blog, so I'm hoping that I will totally enjoy this as much as everyone talking about it has made me think that I will. Um, the next one that I'm planning to start this month is a group read on another Discord that I'm a part of, which is a Discord that Witch Kitten Reads started, and it's a read along for the Wheel of Time series. So it's The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, and here's the cover for that one. This one I am really trying to read and try to catch up because they started the last week of May, and I was reading something else, so I'm a bit behind. And I do have some other books that I'm going to talk about here in a second that I feel are more important to read given the time and what I want to do with my life and the real world. So I'm probably going to fall way behind on that read, but I'll hopefully catch up eventually, and maybe I'll at least start this book this month. The next two books I'm going to read were suggested by Books by Shay as part of the Blackout Buddy Read. I will link that information down below. They are White Rage and White Fragility. They talk about race and the racial divide in our country, and here's the cover for White Rage. And just a second. Here is the cover for White Fragility. And these are two books that at the day I post this, the Blackout Buddy Read starts today on June 5th and goes to June 19th. And I feel that, especially given what's going on in our world today, these are important books to read. They're not necessarily books that I would have naturally picked up because I typically use my reading as a form of escapism. But the world is proving to us that many of our friends and neighbors and such, they don't have the ability to just escape some things, and so we shouldn't either. And so I'm choosing to not escape in reading these books. I want to know these experiences and whatever I can do to help. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So moving forward, the next book that I'm going to read is on a similar vein, and actually this isn't as much read as finish. It is Complex PTSD: From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. I'm actually a little over halfway through with this. I've been reading it off and on for the last almost a year, probably. But I think it is important to focus on mental health, especially now because the world seems to be imploding. I don't know if we are living a real life version of the new season of Black Mirror or if we're on the last season of Planet Earth, but we're only starting the 6th month of this year and it's been insane. And the only way I feel like I can get through it is if I focus on my mental health as well. And I'm encouraging everyone to do that as well, as much as you can. Focus on your mental health, focus on you. You're not going to be any good to anyone unless you're some good to yourself first. So check in on yourself as much as you check in on people who are struggling even worse than you are. Because think about it like this. Even if you're like me and you struggle with depression and PTSD and anxiety and all of that, right now, it's a lot worse for people who are living in the cities where the riots are and they have to work, or for our black friends and neighbors, or our other friends and neighbors and family members that are anything less than milky, or anything, sorry, not less than, anything darker than, is what I meant to say, anything darker than white, because these people are facing a lot of police brutality right now, and it's just insane. And their mental health, they're in constant fear and stress and worry, and it's just insane. So check on your friends, even your friends who aren't necessarily in it, like physically in it, in the protests or anything. They're going through it because they're watching this and they're also saying, this could be me. So work on your mental health. It's important. And also make sure that you're reaching out to your friends so that you can help be a buddy for them as well. Because even if you're not seeing a therapist, it's good to talk about it with somebody. And if your friends are anything like me, they're not going to ask you for help. They may not even tell you what's wrong. But sometimes just a good conversation about literally anything else, or just somebody to hear me vent about what is bothering me today, even if it's not what's truly bothering me, it's just the surface level bothering me, makes me feel a lot better. And I'm pretty sure that's true for more than just me. Alright, so moving on to less serious matters, back into the fiction world. The next book on my TBR, the next two actually have been on my TBR for a long time. I have On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This is the second book she wrote. The first book she wrote was The Hate You Give. For some reason, I was thinking this was a sequel, but I read the synopsis and it's totally not. It's just another coming of age story about a black teenager who finds herself at the center of a controversy, and because of the color of her skin and the way she grew up and where she grew up from, or grew up at in, ooh, English not working for me. You'd think I read so much I'd be able to speak words better, but it's not working out for me today. Anyway, I loved The Hate You Give. I actually haven't watched the movie yet. I plan to do that as well this month. But I loved Angie's first book. I actually also have a writing prompt journal from Angie Thomas's that I bought recently, and it's not on my TBR. I'm working through it. It's not on my TBR because it technically doesn't feel like reading, really, because it's kind of a workbook. I don't know. I don't know if it counts, so I didn't put it on my TBR even though I'm working through it. Alright, the next book that I have is Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tony Idemi. I hope I'm saying that right. I meant to look it up and I forgot to. Oh my god, this cover is beautiful. And this cover is actually beautiful under the dust jacket too. Some of my favorite colors, black and that turquoise teal kind of blue shade. So this actually is a sequel to Children of Blood and Bone. Oh my god, I loved the first book. And I actually just recently purchased this. I don't know why I didn't purchase the sequel sooner. I seem to remember wanting to pre-order it, but something happened and I wasn't able to. And then it kind of fell off my radar because my TBR is like 8 billion books long. And I found it the other day, and by the other day I mean a couple weeks ago. I bought this a while ago. Um, and I saw the cover again and I fell in love with the cover, and it's actually, oddly enough, the cover of the first one that I fell in love with. I just saw such a beautiful cover, and I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but sometimes I so totally do, and I'm so glad that I did with Children of Blood and Bone, and I have a strong feeling that that this book is going to stand up to that judgment as well, because this cover is even more beautiful, and frankly I just want to know what happens next in that story. um it's a fantasy book, and there are magical tribes, and there's a government regime that wants to eradicate them so that they don't have the power to take over, and it's about the struggle of these people rising up and coming into power, and it's basically the revolution. And I also think that it's also kind of timely, given what we're looking at today. All right, so the next book I have that's on my TBR is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I have been loving his books lately. Last month I read Lock Every Door. I actually meant to read this last month and I just didn't get to it. So I'm hoping I can get to it because I really need to get this back to the library because they just opened. And then the last two I have, let me make some space here so I can breathe. The last two books on my TBR, one is a reread and the other one is a sequel that I didn't know exists, which apparently is a recurring theme for me. The first one is The Pecan Man by Cassie Dandridge Selleck. She is an indie author, and I feel like if she hadn't been an indie author, The Pecan Man would have been a way, way bigger book. The story is amazing. It's set in the summer of 1967, and there's this well-off black woman, or sorry, well-off white woman that her husband dies, and she hits a point in her life where everything's changing, and she starts to rely more on her maid. And then as she's doing that, as she's getting to know these people, something really tragic happens to the daughter of her maid, and her maid is a black woman. Um, and the really, really, really bad thing ends up getting blamed on the Pecan Man, who is a homeless black man that frequents the area that Orly, the white woman, lives in, and the Pecan Man gets arrested for murder, and Orly and the family know that he did not do it, but something happens to where they can't tell the truth to protect another one of the characters in the book. And then at the end, there's this twist that will make you cry so hard. The whole book, trigger warnings. Definitely trigger warnings for abuse and sexual assault and that sort of thing. It is a very poignant, very sad story. I read it once, and not many books make me feel emotions like this. Literally, the only book I've ever read that gives me emotion like this is Flowers for Algernon. And I read that book when I need to ugly cry because I just need to stress cry. this book, I read it a couple years ago, I think in 2017, and the reason I ended up buying it recently was because um my mother-in-law was asking me about it. She said she wanted to read it, and so I looked it up, and I decided I just wanted to see how much it cost. And so I went ahead and bought that. Well, actually, there's a bit different to the story. So I ended up discovering that Cassie Dandridge Selig wrote a sequel, which is the last book on my TBR, The Truth About Grace. This is a sequel to The Pecan Man. So I just, when I found out there was a sequel, I decided, oh my God, I have to buy that. I have to know what's next. And when I bought it, the library was still closed, so I couldn't do anything like check and see if it was at our library or see if my library could borrow it from another library like I did when I originally read The Pecan Man. So I bought it, and then I thought, well, if I'm going to buy this, I really want to own The Pecan Man. And it's been so long since I read The Pecan Man that I kind of wanted to reread it anyway so I could get back in the headspace of the story. Um, so this one takes place after Eldred Mims, the Pecan Man, has died in prison for the crime that he didn't commit. And Aura Lee ends up deciding to set the record straight. Her confession left Blanche Lowry's daughters, the maid, Patrice and Grace, to grapple with the aftermath of a lifetime of lies. Now the sisters must reframe everything they thought they knew about their mother, their brother, and the man they knew as Eddie. Um, and I'm looking forward to this, but also um, I am and I am and I am not. I'm not looking forward to it because I know it's going to make me cry, but it's a very poignant story. There are parts of the Pecan Man that do deal with race and race inequality, and they deal with, in the Pecan Man, Aura Lee is suddenly and rudely awakened to the differences that her maid and her maid's daughters have in the same society that she has. This isn't really a spoiler because it's not part of the main story, but there's one scene where Aura takes her maid's oldest daughter to the store so that they can buy school clothes because Aura sees that they don't have a lot, so she's trying to give back to the maid, especially after the terrible thing happened to the youngest daughter. And so Aura goes off into the store shopping, or they separate for some reason, and she sends her maid's daughter to go collect her an order that she had. Well, they start treating the daughter like she's a thief and like she's lying and she's trying to steal stuff. And like the girl doesn't have anything on her, and she's dressed, nicely because she put on her nice clothes to go out in town with Aura Lee. And like it gets to the point where I can't remember if they actually do call the cops or they just get really close to calling the cops, but eventually Aura Lee has to come in and tell these people that this girl is with her and she's doing nothing wrong, and they had no reason to believe that she ever was. um and it's just a stark slap in the face for Aura Lee because she had no idea that that's what life was like for these people. um and because she never had to experience it. One, she's white, and two, she was really well off. Her husband was like a lawyer or something like that. So they had all kinds of money and everything. She's got more money than she knows what to do with. Um, and so it deals with race issues, it deals with sexual assault, um, and it deals with, just getting your whole life perspective changed. And so I'm looking forward to the reread of The Pecan Man, even though I know that it's definitely going to make me cry again, because just thinking about it makes me tear up. Um, and I have a reasonable expectation that The Truth About Grace is also going to make me cry. But what are books for if not to give us those experiences, and help us learn and escape and everything else. So that is my very ambitious TBR. I know that I am 100% going to finish White Rage and White Fragility, because I'm starting those right now, right after I film. Um, and the other ones I am going to do my best to get to. Uh, I don't know how those are going to get reshuffled, but I'm going to read at least some of the books on this stack. And we'll see in my wrap up at the end of the month or the beginning of next month, whenever I post it, how well I did and how well I stuck to this, because Lord knows that my wrap up for May looked nothing like my TBR for May. But I always consider my TBR for the month just a wish list of books that I would like to read, and not an assignment, with the exception of this month, where I have at least 2 books that are totally an assignment. But that's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there. Go vote if you haven't already and it's time, or go vote when it is time. Stay safe. Check on your friends. Check on your mental health. And I do hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.